Okay, forum regulars game. This game was set up on the forums, obviously. And when it was made, the game was created with 10 player slots. And the idea was, as has now become the common practice for any games of this sort, that you have 10 player slots and then as many players join as possible. And then if you end up with less players than that, you start the game early and the map regenerates. And that ended up happening. We ended up with 8 people. But in that space of time before the game actually properly started, I started talking to some of my neighbors, which ended up not being my neighbors, but you know what I mean. One of those people was Crisis Mana. And he, as soon as I joined, friendly, said hi, you know, started talking really, really very quickly about an alliance. Um, and he specifically wanted a type of alliance that he had suggested on the forums as a strategy. And this was in response to one of my posts on the forums. And it was like, it was a strategy that I thought could work. But the problem with the strategy was that it required one kingpin sort of player and then two other henchmen sorts of players. And it was more complicated than that, but I honestly didn't follow him that much. So, but really, at its essence, I believe that's what it was. And I was vaguely interested in it, but the problem is that I assumed that he would want to be the kingpin, which I'm sure he did. And I didn't want to be a henchman. Seriously, who wants to be a henchman? It's no fun. Um, so I responded kind of ambivalently. I was vaguely interested in Alliance, but I didn't want to play that strategy. And I uh, I talked to Stefan, who also I was vaguely interested in Alliance with, but things like there didn't really work out because after the game started properly and the map regenerated, he was here and I was here. And that's an awkward place for allies. And I thought that we could have made it work, but he was like, I don't really feel like it will. And I was like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. Um, the other thing that happened as soon as the game started was Crisis Mana sent me messages saying that he wanted to attack Rosslessness. And since we were, I guess, an alliance, he was really insistent that we attack Rosslessness. And I was like, yeah, I'm interested in attacking someone. Yes, I would like to work with you about it, but it doesn't have to be Rosslessness. Especially because I talked to Rosslessness and he seemed friendly enough. And I suggested, we could also attack janitorial duties or something to that effect. And I said, I'm just going to sit and wait and watch. But Crisis really wanted to attack Blue. It struck me as odd at first, but I kind of let it go. I was like, I don't think he's going to actually move on Rosslessness. He proved me wrong when later in the game, right about here, he takes this outpost. And he immediately sends me a message saying Rosslessness is a traitor. And I was like, explain how this is possible because, and he said it's because Rosslessness had agreed that Crisis could have Rokovoku, and that was it. But that later he had sent a larger sub to take Rokovoku. I couldn't see this, but my gut said that Brown was lying, especially because of the way that he handled diplomacy and the slightly fishy, overeager attitude that he had, and especially the fact that he had been talking about attacking Blue very, very insistently before the game started. And that was really the big part, that I didn't buy his I was friends with Blue story. The Blue attacked me story I bought. Especially because I saw later, oh, look, Blue took Rokovoku. But I just didn't trust Brown. It was so far-fetched to me that in fact, when anyone else who had also been approached by Crisis, when anyone else asked me about it, I said I don't believe Brown. straight up just said, I don't believe him. And Riot kind of agreed with me, I believe. But it turns out that Light Blue, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. There you go. You can see it. It turned out that Light Blue did believe him. And so Light Blue and Brown attacked Blue, which ended up being weird because now Blue is kind of screwed. And then I also noticed that Blue is not super active. He's not doing that much. Like, his drillers would just kind of sit there. And if he was really being attacked, why is he just sitting there? I just didn't get it. And so I decided that I might as well pick up some territories before Brown and Light Blue get all of them. And so I ended up attacking Dark Blue. And that went pretty well. Eventually, Dark Blue did get eliminated by a pretty shrewd play by Crisis. I was actually surprised because this was only his second game. That was not the first time I was surprised with Brown. More on that in the next video, though.